Here at the Heart of Glass podcast, it's our responsibility to make this the safest listening and viewing experience for everybody. So with that being said, today's episode touches on drug use and suicide. So if those are topics that you might be sensitive to, it might be safe just to skip past this episode. I would also like to touch on the fact that throughout this episode, we talk about the release of the next episode, which will be Ashley's interview. We haven't gotten to record that yet. Unfortunately, life has gotten in the way, but that is coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. With that being said, enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to Heart of Glass, the podcast, the show that takes a deeper, more in-depth look at the awesome humans who make up the heartbeat of our city. My name is Ashley Cohn, and I'm your host, and we are officially about to the end of this season. Today's episode is extremely special because we are taking our awesome videographer, pulling them out from behind the camera, and we are gonna have them here today for an interview. I'm so excited. We've been working so closely together, and I know some of you have been asking to get to know this awesome person better. Today's guest is one of the founders of the podcast and the reason why it's so visually appealing. They are a talented photographer and videographer and excel in both areas. They've always had a passion for art, whether that be music, painting, video, photography, or 3D design. When most people were pursuing sports, relationships, or passing algebra in school, they were behind a computer practicing video editing, photography, and visual effects. They're also non-binary and believe that it's very important to let it be known that that is who they are. Their goal is to help make people feel comfortable around non-gender conforming individuals and to help the next generation to know that no matter who you are, what you look like, or what your truth is, you can be successful, happy, and passionate. They've become one of my dearest friends. They're getting ready to shoot my wedding next weekend, and I've been looking forward to this conversation all season. They're emerging from behind the camera to do this today. So Glass City humans, I give you Tiernen Rice. That was actually so smooth.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. What can I say?
Tiernen, how weird is this? Does this feel really weird?
It's strange,
Yeah.
definitely, but
Yeah.
the shot that we did beforehand definitely helps.
Does that help a little
I'm
bit?
feeling a little loose,
Good deal.
so we're good.
What's the weirdest part for you? Is it simply the fact that you're in the seat, or is it that you're usually behind the camera?
It's a little bit of both. I've been interviewed a few times.
Yeah.
For a few things, like when I was interviewed at Penta.
Yeah.
About like a success story. Not to like sound conceited, but like they called me in and were like, oh yeah, tell us about your story, and I like went in and did that. So I'm a little used to that, but it's definitely strange to like come out from like Tyler sitting there
Right.
now, who we shot earlier this season
Yeah.
and was doing that. But it's just weird to.
Weird
I
to
don't
be
know.
on this side
It's
of
weird to
things.
have you looking at me.
I know, you've never been in the seat. We've done this for test shots, but we haven't actually had you haven't been on this side of things.
Right.
You mentioned Tyler. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Tyler Ritter. He is behind the camera today, and y'all got to know Tyler in one of our episodes before, and we are actually shooting in Tyler's place again. So huge thank you to Tyler for being here
Love
in
you,
his
homie.
own apartment, running the cameras today. Are you ready to do this?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Let's do one of these real quick.
Yeah, here. Cheers, my
Cheers.
friend. All right, well, let's dive right in.
Yeah, shall we?
I'm excited about this because I obviously have gotten to know you pretty well, but just like with my other friends that I've had on the podcast, like Big C, our very first guest we had this season, one of my very best friends, and I still learned so much about him, so I'm really excited to talk to you because we've talked about some of these things, but we haven't talked about them to this extent,
Right.
so I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Let's do
I'm
it.
a little nervous, but
Let's
I'm
do
excited.
it. You got
Let's
this.
get
It'll
into
be all right. Okay. So it sounds like from what you were saying in your story that you definitely had a very difficult upbringing. And you stated that when you were young, you didn't fully realize the extent of the chaos that you were growing up in and around. And you said it wasn't until you were older that you fully realized what you were living around.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate a little bit on what you meant when you said that?
Yeah, so I'll give an example of like something that happened like my sister brought up to me recently and pointed out that this wasn't a normal occurrence for other people, is we used to, like growing up, we would have these big rager parties with like tons of people.
Yeah.
People were just doing like shrooms and LSD and like all of this stuff. And I was like 5, 6, like people were passing out on the, like I would wake up in the morning, people would be passed out in the living room, just all over the floor and stuff like that. So that was things that happened multiple times a year. I think I said in my bio, I don't have like a ton of memory of my childhood, which my therapist says is because I don't want to. It's a
defense
mechanism. Thank you. Yeah. So it's hard for me to like describe exactly how my upbringing was. Just I remember it fondly. You know, it like to me, I was like, oh yeah, we're all just having fun and doing this stuff, and people are over, and it's great, and we're running around, and
that would make sense if that's what you were used to seeing. That would become the normal, because that's what you're seeing on a regular basis. So why would that seem out of the ordinary to you? And even depending on how you framed it in your mind over the years, or even what your 5-year-old mind would allow you to fully ascertain, it probably did feel good to you at the time, or seem like a good thing, good memories.
I just didn't understand, I feel like a lot of like the trauma that I've experienced in my life has been written off to my later years because I just didn't understand at the time what was going on. My subconscious did, my brain understood, but like me as a child, just compartmentalizing it, did not understand. And just, I mean, Tyler could even tell you, like when I first met him, I was like, yeah, my life's great, just blissfully ignorant until I went to therapy for years. So
there's almost like almost like a desensitizing thing when you've shared certain parts of your life over and over and over again, or just the mere fact that I think you know that it's really not okay, but you've had to morph it in your mind to be something that just seems like it's not a big deal. Like I can think of several times where I've had certain friends tell me about a pretty serious past trauma, and they'll laugh when they talk about it, because I think your brain will only sometimes allow you to go so far with how much you dig into things.
I think that also is something that, like, at least I can speak from my personal truth about that, is I laugh because I don't want people to feel bad for me. I laugh because I'm like, oh, it's okay, like you can laugh, it's all right. But it's an awkward thing to talk about trauma. I mean, we all experience it, but for some reason it's something that's stigmatized.
It's true. I think it'll definitely give more context to this as we go on through our talk today. But you worrying about making other people uncomfortable is not surprising to me, just because I know you and I know your story to a certain extent. So that makes sense to me that you would be doing everything you can to make sure that you're not making people feel uncomfortable by your truth, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted me to expand on that more. I know I didn't really touch too much. Like, you're like, can you tell me more about
I would
that?
love for you to expound on anything that you are willing to expound on. So yes, absolutely.
I don't know, just ask the next question.
Okay, all right. See, I feel like you can totally do this today.
I got it. We're good.
All right, so in 2009, you shared that you tragically lost your father to suicide, and everything changed for your family. What was your dad like, and how did you handle losing him in such a traumatic way? So
I want to be upfront about my father. I absolutely love him. Like,
that's awesome.
Everything he did it big, whether it was good or bad.
Yeah. All right.
So you can take that in the context that you need to, but he was the life of the party. People loved him a little too much at times, but he and I were very close. I was I always wanted to grow up to be like him when I was young. And he always told me not to be like him growing up. He said, do whatever you want, but don't be like me, and don't be an iron worker, follow what you love, unless what you love is being an iron worker, which I've never tried it, so I don't know. Obviously, I love doing video and art, but I have a lot of very fond memories of my father, but there's also things that have been brought to my attention as I've gotten older. I have 2 half siblings with, he cheated on my mom, and I've never met these people.
Oh, wow.
And I would like to, but I don't know how to contact them, to be quite honest. So it's been very strange. So
I bet.
I'm saying a lot.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's my editor brain right now being like, I want to take those out later.
I know, but it's okay. I mean, okay, so to have a natural conversation about the dynamics of this, I feel like our guests will appreciate this. So I have a high degree of respect for all of our guests that come on here, because unlike a standard podcast where you're sitting across a table and you just have a microphone in between the two of you, we have lights and cameras, and beyond that, our guests know they're coming on here to bear a lot of their soul. So it is a lot of pressure. So I feel like nervousness is gonna come out, and that's okay because it's a totally natural thing. So the ums are not a problem.
All right. So, but growing up, my sister and my dad did not have a really good relationship. My sister is 3 years older than I am, and has always been more aware of the situation that we were in.
Okay.
And they're also non-binary.
Yeah.
They would get into screaming fights with my dad all the time.
Okay.
Because they just always call bullshit how they see it.
Sure.
So, they would know that he was going out and doing this stuff or drinking too much or, doing whatever else he was doing, and would just not back down and would poke at him and just be like, you need to do better. So, in a lot of ways, they had a more rocky relationship, which I think led to things that later on happened with my sister, because it was complicated. And for me, as somebody who was younger, my sister was always looking out for me and trying to shield me from this stuff. So I was a little bit more blissfully ignorant.
I think that's really normal to have two children from the same family, be raised by the same parent, but have a very, very vastly different relationship from them, especially when you have a sibling that maybe has a few years on you, who has the emotional, mental capacity to have a greater understanding of what is fully going on.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, and then definitely I agree with that 100%. And even to this day, they still are, I'll ask them questions about stuff because I was just so unaware, and they were aware,
Sure.
So, but yeah, then, like I said, I remember my dad very fondly, and when he passed, that was something, it still haunts me to this day, because we were camping with friends, my sister and I remember he called me, and he had been a little bit weird because at the time, he and my mom had broken up because he had cheated one too many times, and she had finally had enough and was like, yeah, you can't be here anymore.
Well, I remember you said that you just kind of chalked his kind of strange behavior up to sadness, which I think would be a very easy assumption to make, considering what you said, what was going on with the separation and everything.
Right, exactly. So I was like, I don't know, 2009, I was maybe 12 or something like that.
I think I literally counted back the years, and I think you were 12 or 13 then.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And so yeah, I didn't have a whole big grasp on emotional anything, being adolescent and whatnot. Nobody there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There.
You're very right about that.
I just chalked his strangeness up to him being sad, and whatever was going on. And then the last time we spoke on the phone, we didn't even say I love you or anything. He didn't say it to me, I didn't say it to him. Not out of spite or anything, but just because I was a kid having fun with my friends camping. And I think he was just, me understanding how mental illness works now, I think he was just so disconnected already that it just didn't occur to him, or maybe it just added on that he was like, oh yeah, see this, my kids don't even love me or something like that. Which I know is harsh to say, but it's something that I carry with me. It's hard to get over that. And the next day, our mom picked us up, and bless her soul, she took us to McDonald's, and we got McDonald's breakfast, and we didn't know anything was going on. When we got home, she sat us down and told us what happened, and I broke down immediately. And like I said, my sister had a rocky relationship with him. She was a teenager at the time, or they were a teenager. I apologize, Tay. They were a teenager at the time, and I just remember them saying how selfish, and just standing up and walking away.
See, that to me, that makes sense, and it's not that uncommon in a situation like that, because I think it goes back to you have two children who are raised by the same parent, but you have that few years difference, and Tay had a greater understanding of the dysfunction that was going on, whereas for you, didn't have as much. So that makes sense since Tay had a little bit more insight into what's going on, even if at the time I'm sure it seemed like a really inappropriate reaction to you.
Yeah. Well, I also didn't understand, like,
Sure.
there was, like, some personal stuff there that I'm not even going to get into because
Sure.
it's not my business to share, but, like, my dad had, like, really done them wrong.
Gotcha.
Like,
Okay.
with everything that he was doing, like, there's a lot there, so.
I see. Okay. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense then. So after that, you said that things with your family were never the same again.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I'm going to apologize to Tay in advance for sharing this, but I feel like it's a very pertinent part of my story. After this happened, they were gone a lot of the time.
Okay.
My older sister was, and they started getting into like heavier drugs and eventually ended up dropping out of school, which I'll give them props. They went back and they finished. They got their degree.
Nice.
Like,
Okay.
Good for them.
That's awesome.
Like, and they're doing, for the record, they're doing fantastic now. Like,
That's
we have a
awesome.
really good relationship. They have a baby on the way. Like, it's.
Well, and
things are
you,
really better.
I know your heart. I know you have this understanding. When somebody goes through what the two of you went through, everybody has a different reaction and everybody turns to different things to cope. And especially when you're very young, I know that Tay had a few years on you, but especially when you're very young, the capacity to be able to process is very limited. And so that's a really normal thing in a situation like that, to see someone start using drugs to just try and cope. So that's not a character fault on your sister's part at all. Literally a coping mechanism, because clearly at the time they didn't know how else to cope. So,
Right,
So
exactly.
I love that you said that they're doing well and everything, because that definitely doesn't define their whole life.
And they actually want to start a podcast as well, where
That's
they
awesome.
talk about sobriety and like the struggles of that and
That's amazing.
going through all of that. But that aside,
It's okay though, you're repping family stuff. It's
Right,
cool.
right.
All right, that's all right.
and then my mom never sought out therapy
Okay.
or anything, which I really think is something that she should have done. I think we all should have been in therapy at this
Sure.
point. Mainly because I was just in denial. Like, I was sad, but yeah, I just kept on going. You know, you put one foot in front of the other. We lived out in the country at the time, so I was, just go out and split some wood and cut the grass and cut the fields and go in the barn and do barn stuff and
Sure.
just keep on keeping on. And, I don't know, it's just, I always tell people that when somebody dies, life changes, but when somebody close to you commits suicide, life is never the same. And I know those things are kind of like the same thing, but like, those of you who have experienced suicide of somebody who's close to you, you never recover from that. I don't know how.
Yeah.
There's always you can tell yourself that the person was, mentally ill or life got the best of them, but there's always that thought in the back of your mind, had I done this or had I done that, how things could have been different. Maybe if I did say I love you, that would have been the thing that would have stood out. I don't know.
I'm gonna guess, I've never been in your situation, but I'm gonna guess based on hearing you say that and hearing other people say that, my fiance has a family member close to her that also took their own life, and she's talked very similarly to what you're saying. I feel like that makes so much sense to me, because how could you not sit there and run through, even though you might know it's not helpful to do it, how can you not sit there and wonder, well, what if this would have been different? What if I would have said this differently? That makes a lot of sense to me. I think that's a really normal response to all of that.
It's really hard to get closure when somebody takes their own life.
I would imagine. I would imagine that's a lifelong process, and everybody processes that differently, and everybody handles how they want to keep that person's memory alive differently. And I don't know how you find closure in that situation. And
I don't know either. I wish I had advice to tell people in this situation, but I don't know. It's something I struggle with every day.
that makes a lot of sense. Well, after your dad died, this doesn't surprise me that you would reach for a creative outlet, even if you didn't know at the time that's where your heart was really moving towards. Mm-hmm. You said that after your dad died, you got your first guitar and you fell in love with playing. I understand that. It's an easy instrument to fall in love with. How did having music as an outlet help you to cope with the loss of your father?
Music changed my life.
Did it?
Like on the inside of my my senior, what is it called, senior rings or whatever, to graduate.
Class rings,
Class
yes,
rings,
yeah.
Yeah, it says no music, no life. And I still have that ring to this. I never wear it because it's big and tacky and like.
What's wrong? You don't want to wear that giant ring on your finger?
Looking back, had I known I was like gay, I would have probably got like the female variant.
Not quite so large.
Yeah, it's just so big. I look at it sometimes and I put it on and I'm just like, oh God.
Just like, nope.
But yeah, no, I fell in love. My godfather, Jeremy, got me. He played guitar when he was younger, and he got me into it. And he helped me pick out my first guitar, which was an Ibanez acoustic.
Really?
I still have it to this day.
That's
It's
awesome.
beat to hell. Has lacquer cracks and divots in it and scratches from. I used to wear these big obnoxious belt buckles in school. I was an emo scene kid. Like Tyler will tell you, I
believe it
had
wholeheartedly.
Snake bites, but anyways, so it's all scratched up and torn to hell. But I love that guitar. I love the sound of it, and it changed my life. I just fell in love with like you can express yourself.
You really
you can
can.
tell a story without speaking. You can make people feel things without speaking,
true.
and it's incredible. You can make yourself feel things. I'm feeling sad, so I'm gonna play a sad song, and it's a way to how you play, how you pluck the strings, how you strum, whether it's up or down or with a pick with your hand. Like it has a different effect on your body and mind. So
It does. That's true.
It changed my life. I don't play music nearly as much now, but at the time that was something that really helped me get through everything in life. And it was on an acoustic, and I learned how to play like classic rock. I was playing
Awesome.
Metallica on an
On your
acoustic guitar
acoustic?
before I
That's
got my
great.
first electric.
Well, I had one of my, not my very first guitar, but one of my very first guitars was an Ibanez. It was this little blue Ibanez acoustic electric. And Ibanez guitars are great when you're still in those learning stages because they can take a beating.
Yeah.
They really can take a beating.
And mine has. I will never get rid of that guitar, ever. That and my first electric, I will never get rid of.
I think that's the cool thing about music, because you were talking about you don't really play as much anymore, but that's the amazing thing about an instrument is that you can walk away from it, but you can always walk back to it and always pick it back up, and it will always be there for you. I've said many times throughout my life that music has been one of the most consistent things for me, if not the most consistent. So I'm really from one musician to another, that makes me really happy because I know how therapeutic music is, how therapeutic playing an instrument can be. So I'm really glad that you grabbed onto that.
It's really an amazing gift that, like, as humans, we were gifted.
Oh, definitely.
Like,
definitely.
It's just to like be able to create music. Like, that's
absolutely
incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's great.
Yes, it is. So around the same time that you took an interest in music, you started making videos as well, and eventually formed a crew with your friends who are still in your life to this day. That is not surprising to me from the standpoint that I know that you can sometimes be a quieter individual. You're a very good leader.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're a very good leader and a good organizer, actually, of people. So that wouldn't surprise me that you would eventually at some point want to bring on a crew of people to work with and organize. What drew you to videography in the first place?
So this is a fun story. I don't even know if Tyler knows this story about how I first got into video. But I found, so, when there was like the weird evolution stage for technology, like videos, like memory cards specifically from like tape to SD cards.
Yes.
And there was like the weird in-betweens of like digital tapes that you could like rewrite over.
Yeah.
So I found an old home video camera that had those.
Nice.
I think I still have it to this day because I like to look at it as a reminder of where I came from. But I saw Paranormal Activity and I was like, wow, I could do that. So I got this home video camera out and set it up. I didn't have a tripod or anything. I just set it up like on nightstands and stuff, and me and my cousin Sierra, she would come over and we would make these stupid videos.
That's great.
And eventually I got like a little flip cam and I worked my way up to a DSLR, but my friend AJ and we kind of started the crew because he was in Mommy at the time. He started in Swanton, is where I went to school, and we were friends, and then he went to Mommy for a couple of years, and then he started doing video around the same time I did.
Nice.
And we reached out to each other, and we were a little bit rivalish at first, because he was like, I do video, and I was like, I do video. But then we decided to join forces instead, and over time, you know, we were putting out we were watching YouTube channels like Corridor Digital and Freddie W, which you might not be familiar with, but they kind of broke the internet with their style of videos because they were the first people to bring high-end action videos with visual effects and CGI to YouTube and kind of paved the way for future YouTubers.
Nice.
So AJ and I were like, let's be YouTubers. So we started making YouTube videos, and you know, fortunately, these YouTube channels were making tutorials on how they did VFX, and
very cool.
I may or may not have pirated high-end software.
Maybe,
because
maybe not.
Because I was just a kid and I didn't have thousands of dollars.
Right.
And I, you know, at the time, had I maybe or maybe not, I may have made the pact that when I have money, I will buy this software.
I mean, in all fairness, I'm guessing that probably over the course of your time using camera equipment and over the course of your professional career, I feel like you've probably put enough money back into the videography, photography industry to make up for that.
So I got Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere Pro, and I started learning how to do compositing and visual effects and layering and all of this crazy stuff. And we would make little videos with our friends where we had airsoft guns and we would, you know, visual effects, muzzle flashes on to make it look, you know, thing and blood and gore, and it was crazy. And those were good times.
That's
because
awesome.
we were getting together every weekend to shoot something.
Very cool.
And putting out these videos. And we can still look back on, well, AJ, if you're watching this, I'm still mad at you for deleting your YouTube channel all those years ago. But we have a lot of content that we made back in the day, just unlisted, because to be honest, it is kind of embarrassing. But
even still, for posterity's sake, that has to be really cool to be able to go back at certain points and look and see, okay, this is where I started with this, and look at what I'm doing now.
We got a crew of 15 people.
That's impressive.
Actors and people who are good with cameras. We started doing special effects makeup, and
that's awesome.
I remember when the last season of Breaking Bad came out, we did this YouTube video the night before. Recorded and pulled an all-nighter. It was me and Tyler and AJ, our laptops back to back, sitting in my room, just editing shots and uploading them to Google Drive and compositing, dropping them in. And we put it out on the day that the season finale of Breaking Bad came out. And I think it's still out there, isn't it? Crystal Blue. Yeah, but yeah, it was a whole thing. We had we made
awesome.
fake meth, and it was a whole thing. It was great.
So rock candy.
Yeah, it was rock candy.
Yeah,
it was
that's
blue
great.
Rock candy.
That's great.
But yeah, it was. We always did stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun. And I want to get back. Honestly, I want to get back to narrative storytelling like that.
Okay.
Because commercial stuff is cool and weddings are fun, but at the end of the day, I have a story to tell, and I want people to feel.
I feel like you would be excellent at that. So very much in support of you doing that. So bouncing back to music for a second, you ended up forming a band in high school, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
And you even won your school's talent show, all while still dealing with bullying. So let's flash back for a second. You said you were a pretty quiet kid and that you were bullied pretty extensively. So you had been dealing with that for a long time, and you even got the opportunity to stand up to a bully, which actually ended up
backfiring.
Yeah,
completely.
which ended up backfiring. So I want to know what changed for you after you did this talent show, but can you provide some context and background leading up to that of what was going on with you with bullying throughout school that led to that point?
Yeah, so I have curly hair. Okay.
Curly-haired friends, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I always had it kind of long.
Okay.
I don't know. The shortest I've ever had it was still pretty long. But when I was in school, I had it halfway down my back.
Wow.
So I was like a rock star, you know? I thought I was gonna be Slash from Guns N' Roses.
It was goal-oriented. Your long hair was very goal-oriented.
It was iconic, but it was super frizzy. I did not take care of it. But anyways, so people would make fun of me. They would call me sheepdog and stuff, and you know, and I was also very small. I did not hit puberty for maybe until my sophomore year.
Okay.
I was 90 pounds well into high school.
So you were a small person then.
High voice, curly hair, baby face.
Sure.
So people just picked on me, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself. anytime like confrontation would happen, like I would get extremely anxious.
Sure.
And like my face would get very red, which would make them make fun of me even more.
Oh, I hate that.
And then the time that I finally stood up to the person who bullied me most, which I will not name drop because actually he and I have come, like we've sorted out our
That's
differences,
great.
and he's doing well. And you know, we've run into him a few times, and you know, he's doing well. But point being, I finally stood up to him. I forget exactly what happened. I think he like cut in front of me in line in elementary school or something.
Really?
And I just like reached out and grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him down. And I forget exactly what it was, like the context of what I said to him. But the thing was, he went and told on me.
Okay.
Okay? Which is wild because I've been telling on him, this was in 5th grade, I've been telling on him for like the entire school year and probably previous years as well. But apparently whatever I had done was so bad that I got suspended.
Wow.
Yeah, which I will give it credit to my mom for this. She was like, "You're not in trouble." Like, she actually like went out and like bought me a video game and was like, and she had like a whole beef with the school and was like, I had been like reaching out to you about this kid for like months and you haven't done anything. And when my kid finally stood up for themselves, like they get suspended. Like, and I beat myself up relentlessly for it.
That's what I was gonna ask, because I feel like, especially when you're a child who already has a hard time advocating for themselves, for speaking up, standing up when they know they're being wronged, to then get up the courage to do that and then have that kind of a response. What did that do to you internally, having that kind of a response to that?
I still to this day have a really hard time standing up for myself because of that. I remember crying, and so not only was I suspended, the principal was like, "You're suspended, but you have to finish the school day out." So I had to like be miserable for the rest of the school day because this happened at lunch. So I had like the whole rest of the half of the day. But my teacher just made me go sit in the hallway because apparently I've just been blacklisted now.
Oh no!
So I just sat in the hallway, and I remember this kid who had done this walking by me in the hallway, and I was just crying, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he just smiled and walked away.
Wow.
So that image still haunts me to this day.
I can understand why. I mean, we nowadays we kind of say it jokingly, but seriously, core memory that sticks with you. That really does. That'll stick with you long term.
So like I said, I just have a really hard time standing up for myself these days. Like, I've gotten better about it, and sometimes I think I react a little too strongly to things. Like I recently had a falling out with somebody where I just like was like, essentially I was just like, "Fuck you, like I want nothing to do with you."
Sure.
And I don't know if it was too strong or not, but I just, at this point in my life, I have no patience to just deal with that anymore. I feel like I've dealt with so much like aggression growing up.
Your tolerance for it has
that
lowered.
Like, I'm 25, I'm young, but I feel like
You feel like you're too old to deal with that anymore?
I got 2 kids, I got a business, like I'm just like,
Yeah.
I've got like 3 businesses, like it's too much.
I get that your capacity lowers for all of that.
Yeah.
So your band that you formed in high school enters a talent show.
Incomplete Dominance was the name. Got it from science class.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you enter this talent show and you win this talent show. What changed after that?
Everything.
Can you elaborate on that?
So all of a sudden, I was getting like friend requests on Facebook from like the most popular kids in school. Like was this sophomore year, Tyler? It was sophomore year, and seniors were like requesting me on Facebook, requesting me, this kid who had been like quiet and bullied and weird, and
Sure.
but all of a sudden they were like, "You're so great, will you come play at my birthday party?" and all of this stuff, and I was like, I mean, if you want to pay, like, yeah. Which granted, it was like, pay us $100 and there's 5 of us.
Right.
So, but I don't know, people just started recognizing me and calling me out in the hallways, and
Yeah.
I got this confidence that I was like, yeah, like people see me now, you know, like people know who I am, and
Sure.
I craved it, which is why like
That makes
I feel like I
sense.
started getting into more of like a media industry and things of that sort, because it feels good when you're seen when you haven't been seen your whole life.
It really does. It really does. Was it easier for you to take that praise and take that bump in ego at face value, or was there a part of you that was a little bit skeptical about
Initially, it made me mad because
Okay.
I was like, oh, so now you want to be my friend.
Okay, so I wondered, because you remember when we had Ella on earlier in the season, she experienced something similar,
Yep.
and she had a very similar reaction where after being bullied pretty much all through school, all of a sudden everybody loves her, and she's like, I don't know about that. So
Yeah.
that makes sense to me that you would have a similar, it would be very hard, I would think, to take that at face value.
That kind of taught me how to be a business person very early on, because I was like, it made me, because I was so skeptical, I was like, yeah, I can do this for you, but you have to pay me.
You're smart though. You didn't even realize that you were already establishing,
Right.
Appreciating your work and knowing your value early on before most people grab onto that. So that's
So
good.
we played a few birthday parties, we played like a couple benefits, we did a couple things, and then eventually I ended up going to Penta Career Center, and we just kind of like dissipated from there. I believe what happened was I got kicked out for whatever reason, and they formed their own band, which I don't know if that worked out or not, but
Okay.
I hope it did. I mean, I saw them live once and they did really well.
Nice. Well, it sounds like the parting of the ways for whatever reason ended up ultimately being a good thing, because
I think so.
you went down the trajectory that you went, which is awesome. So it sounds like from what you were saying in your story that Penta was a huge game changer for you.
It was a fresh start.
Yes, and that your overall quality of life in the school system improved drastically. So what about Penta was so different and changed for you?
So Tyler and I went to Penta together. We decided we
Very
were going to
cool.
go into digital video production,
Nice.
which was the lab that we went into, and we talked about it, I believe, for months, where we were like, this is gonna be a fresh start. We're gonna go into this and we're just gonna like be fucking crazy people.
All about it.
We're gonna be like loud and proud and funny and like do weird stuff and like make people laugh. And we did.
Yeah.
The first day we went in, like people like, we were making jokes and messing
You
with
were
people.
establishing a new image.
Yeah, and it was insane, because like all my life I'd been that quiet kid at school and like nobody saw me, and then all of a sudden at Penta I was class president and I
Wow.
was prom king, and like all of this stuff happened, and we went to state competition and did not win because they gave us a terrible prompt.
Oh no.
So we did what we knew, which was a fight scene. But anyways, point being, I believe those 2 years at Penta, my junior and my senior year, drastically shaped who I am today.
That makes a lot of sense. One, I love that you took that opportunity to reinvent yourself and to really put yourself out there. But I know, because of what you shared in your story and what I know of your life, Penta was a game changer for so many different reasons.
It was so good.
Besides revealing to you that you were confident at that point that you knew you wanted to do video. So I know that was established for you, but during your senior year, you had another major curveball thrown at you because you found out that you were going to be a dad.
Yeah.
So I know that was not something that was planned and in the cards for you.
No.
So how did you feel when you first found out that you were going to be a dad, and how did your life change?
I was like, well, shit.
I feel like that's a really normal reaction.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I appreciate Tyler so much.
know.
Tyler is really trying to be professional and not laugh out loud, but
He was there, you know? I'm sure he knows. I was like, well, shit. So I started working.
yeah, that's what it seems like. You detailed out in your story. It sounds like you were very, very committed to making money and saving up money, thinking about the baby coming. So I would imagine that your schedule got very, very hectic and stressful.
Yeah, so it was my senior year. So at the time, we had state competition for video.
Okay.
Tyler and I were arranging prom at Penta, which we couldn't call prom for whatever reason. We called it MORP, which was prom backwards.
Okay.
But anyways, we had a whole campaign going for that. I had to finish up my credits, which my senior year I only had like 2 credits I had to get, which the classes I had I think was environmental science and financial math. Which
wow.
My financial math teacher was super cool. She was like, just show up in the morning, let me know
great.
you're here, and then go to your lab. I was like, all right. But my environmental science teacher, we were at each other's throats all the time. Because I was
Okay.
like, hey, I don't care. I do not
I
care.
took environmental
about
science my senior year too because I'm super right-brained. So that was my I fulfilled my science requirements for
Yeah.
high school.
I was like, I don't care, and I have an ultrasound to go to. So I'm going to be leaving.
That actually makes so much sense to me. I could totally picture that if the impending baby wasn't in the picture, that maybe you would have had the bandwidth to actually possibly invest in that more.
Yeah.
But considering what was going on at the time, I feel like that was a really normal response, and your priorities sound like they were shifting majorly.
So I feel like most people would have reacted by this news by being like, I'm upset, because I would like to preface this by saying that the girl I was with at the time had told me that she could not get pregnant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we were just loosey-goosey with it.
Sure.
You know, two teenagers just doing what two teenagers do.
Sure. Sure.
So when she was like, I'm pregnant, I was like, well,
wow.
That was a fucking lie. But, you know, I just doubled down and I did what I had to do. You know, I finished up schooling. We did our competitions. I got a job working at a small production house doing appliance repair videos.
Okay.
Which was super exciting.
I bet.
But we had a small studio and I was editing, and then I moved my way up to directing, which was cool. And when my daughter was born, Kiara, it was one of the best days of my life.
I bet.
I just remember bawling my eyes out in the hospital.
I bet.
Just, you know, an 18-year-old kid. She was born after I graduated, but I just remember bawling my eyes out. Still had the long hair, still had the snake bites.
Yeah.
There's a picture of me on Facebook somewhere just crying and holding her. But that girl changed my life forever, and I absolutely adore her.
That is one aspect of you that I love, is I love Tiernen the dad. You can tell that you absolutely love the shit out of your kids, and I can tell that you're unbelievably committed to them and their well-being and their happiness. And while I know that creativity, videography will always be the forefront, you can still tell that at the end of the day, it's in service of making sure that their lives are great.
Yeah, and that's something that like even recently I started doing with like taking my business more seriously, is being like, I want to give my children the life that I never had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know
I don't
what
want
you
them to
mean.
go without, but I also want to be around. And if I can be successful in my business, whether that's doing wedding videos or corporate videos, I only have to work a couple days a week.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time I can be home and I can be with them and I can shape them and be there for them. And when they have questions, I can answer them.
Right.
You know?
That makes so much sense. So you were on the ground floor of a small video production startup.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like for you?
So there was a lot that went into that. The people that I got involved with this startup, I've grown to be very close with.
Okay.
Well, at least at the time, not anymore. But we decided that we wanted to start. I was working at the appliance repair video place still.
Okay.
Doing those videos, and I had a person from there who wanted to get into corporate video and storytelling and working with larger companies and working for an actual production house. Not that this place wasn't a production house, but there was like mushrooms growing out of the floor. Like it wasn't extremely above board. To be fair, my boss at the time, he was incredible.
Awesome.
And I appreciate the opportunity that he gave me.
So was it his fault that there were mushrooms growing
It
out
wasn't
of the floor?
his fault. He was working with his own startup because he had an appliance repair company in Toledo and decided to start. He was very smart in doing this, making a video production company that he could send out with his technicians to record this stuff that was catered to technicians, so that there was a subscription and these technicians could get the subscription. If they were having trouble on the job, they could look up the part number or the appliance number and get an in-depth breakdown of how to repair it. So he was doing what he could with what he can.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But anyways, we wanted more. We wanted more corporate, we wanted high-end, we wanted to tell stories like the production companies in Toledo, like Heart and Madhouse. We wanted to be able to tell those stories. So we started that up and we built a logo and a website, and eventually it broke down to the three of us, which was me and two other people whose names I will not touch on, just for reasons you know why.
Works for me. That works for me.
And I worked there. I ended up quitting the appliance repair place because they matched my salary at the time. and I started doing corporate video. And
Okay.
that was an incredible step for me because that was something that I always wanted.
I bet.
You know, we were working for companies like, you know, I probably shouldn't name them. The point being, we were working for
Yeah.
large companies in Toledo and companies that were nationwide, if not worldwide.
Well, I'm
Worldwide.
sure as a professional, as a budding professional, I would imagine that helped you feel some personal legitimacy in what you're doing, that it felt more real. You know
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
The day I got my first business cards with my name on them, I was
Yes.
like, hell yeah.
Yes.
I was like, I'm like 20 years old, like I got my own business
Got business cards, yeah.
I'm like the motion graphics director, like all
Yeah.
of this stuff. So the things that I brought, I started off that company essentially as a grip,
Okay.
which a grip is just basically a glorified assistant.
Okay.
Unless you have a grip truck. People who are grips who are watching this, I absolutely adore what you do. You are a valued person. Grips are insane.
Okay.
They're the backbone of the video production industry, like by far. They carry like the director, they carry the producer. Like without grips, there would not be lighting.
Oh,
There
wow,
would not
okay.
be audio. There would not be like cables taped down. Like there would be a lot of lawsuits. So essentially I was brought on as an assistant.
Okay.
And then from my years of doing like visual effects as a kid, I got into motion graphics, which is essentially animation.
Okay.
So I was animating lower thirds, titles, full-on intro pieces for companies and things of that sort. And then I worked my way up to being a director,
Cool.
which I was behind the camera, telling talent what to do, asking questions, operating a jib arm, operating a gimbal, things like that, setting up my own lighting, and that was fantastic.
So it sounds like you gained a ton of experience from doing that. A lot of what I would imagine you would consider key skills for your profession. But it doesn't surprise me for whatever reason that at some point you would have said, I can probably run this kind of thing on my own and do this on my own.
Yeah.
So what possessed you to break off and form your own production company?
So I had been working at this company for a few years, and the salary that I was getting didn't exactly match what the industry standard was.
Okay, fair enough.
I won't go into deep numbers about this. You know the numbers. I
Yes,
put them in my
yeah.
story, but I'm not going to go into deep about that. So either way, looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, I was so extra. How did I not know that I was gay? You know what I
I
mean?
feel like that's the age-old question for all of us.
So I made a PowerPoint presentation
I love
for
you.
2 people.
Yes, you did. That's great.
And I presented it, and I was like, here's the industry standard for all of the things that I've done. Here's the growth that I've expanded on over the years and all of this
Yeah.
stuff. Here's what I make. Here's what I would like to make, which was between what I was currently making and what the industry standard was. So I came in middle with the expectation that they would come with a counter offer of about $5,000 less than
So
that.
you weren't even asking for the industry standard.
No,
you were
I
just
was-
asking to raise it to kind of peak at the industry
Right.
standard a
I
little
was
bit.
asking for a livable wage so that I could take my daughter
That's
and
fair.
myself out of the situation we were living in so that we could live on our own. Expecting a counter offer of about $5,000 lower than that. And I went home and I was like, yeah, that was great, super good.
Yeah.
And they called me back and I went back and they had made a PowerPoint of their own explaining to me that I did not do all of nearly enough as the other 2.
Wow.
And that they were not even going to entertain the idea of me getting a raise of any kind.
Wow.
So
What did that feel like when you got that response?
it was devastating.
I bet it
Especially
was.
because these people had grown to be like family to me.
Yeah.
You know, we were close, we were working together all of the time, and
And Tiernen, I know your work ethic.
yeah.
Honestly, look, seriously, our guests might have some understanding what goes into all of what we're doing with the podcast, but unless you work in the industry that you work in, I feel like the understanding of the amount of work that goes into it, they probably don't realize that because besides doing this is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
We come in, we shoot, we do the interviews.
Yeah.
The real hard work is the behind the scenes stuff, and I know what your work ethic is like, and so I can just imagine pushing yourself as hard as I know you push yourself to try and prove yourself, to show that, hey, I deserve this, and you go in and you explain why, and then to get that response, I can understand why that would be devastating.
Yeah. It floored me. I did not expect that. Like, I was just not, like I said, I was expecting a counteroffer of some kind. Because I know what I was asking for was a little bit above what the company could afford.
Yeah.
But me being a business person, I was like, I'll ask above, get the counteroffer, accept the counteroffer, and still be comfortable. And be able to take care. It might be a little bit close, but I'll be able to take care of my family.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I sat there after the presentation and I was just quiet. And I just didn't say anything. And they're like, do you have anything to say? And I was like, no. And I just stood up and walked out. And about 2 hours later, I sent an email to both of them resigning. I just resigned. I was like, I'm done. And about 4 hours after that, I hopped on B&H, which is a website for photo and video.
Okay.
And ordered a bunch of gear.
Okay.
And I started my own company.
This response does not surprise me, once again, because I know you. I love that your response, rather than to, that was a big blow, rather than to have received that blow, let it cripple you, and not do anything about it. Your response was to go ultra productive, and knowing the skills that you have, decide, okay, well, that's fine. I'm just gonna do this on my own.
To be honest, it wasn't just me being like, I'm gonna double down. It was me being like, I've done this since I was 12, and I don't know how to do anything else. So I will either do this and fail.
So you were clinging to it then.
Or I will do this and succeed, and I will never know unless I make the investment.
I love that you did that. We've talked about this since the very beginning of the podcast. You know my mindset on failure. You do not fail ever. You do not fail ever as long as you are trying. The only time we ever fail is when we are not actually trying, because if you don't ever try, you don't even give yourself the opportunity to succeed.
Yeah.
So I love that you just went in it with the mentality, like, I'm gonna do this, and either this is gonna happen or it's not, but I'm gonna try it, because you never know.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was insane. And that was about 2 weeks before the shutdown with the pandemic.
Wow. Okay, so you went hard. I love it.
Yeah,
okay.
I was like, I'll spend about $7,000 on a bunch of gear, and then not allowed to do anything.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned when you were talking about the driving force behind why you wanted to ask for that raise in the first place is you wanted to get yourself out of the current situation that you were in to make a better life for your daughter.
Yeah.
So what was your support system like when you were in those early years of raising Kiara?
So early on, it was really good.
Good.
So the person I was living with at the time was very supportive and kind of put their life on hold for me, which I appreciate to this day. But as years went on, it just turned out to be a very bad situation for me to be in, because I was manipulated, told that anytime I felt anything other than happy, that it was, I feel like I should preface this for the viewers by saying that like the situation I was in was very like cult-like, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make a lot of sense.
The beliefs that were in the household that I was living in were very outlandish. And it was something that I believed because it was something that I had been told for a very long time. So anytime that I was feeling anything other than happy, whether that was mad or sad or I was just having a bad day, it was some other dimensional entity that had attached to me and that I needed to clear my energy or meditate on it or sit down and do something of that sort, and it just wasn't valid. Or I was possessed. At one point, it was because I was possessed by some ghost.
See, I think when you have an adult in your life who seems larger than life, who you respect, who speaks very confidently in their delusion, it's through no fault or error of your own that you would follow that, because they're saying it with conviction. It's somebody that you trust at the time, right? So that makes sense. I mean, whether or not we want to accept it when we're younger, the people who have primary importance in our life are the people that do help. They don't necessarily dictate how we turn out. They don't dictate belief systems, but there's an influence there.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Which, it's hard for me to say that it was all bad. You know, like, there was a lot of bad. There was.
Sure.
And it shaped who I am today, and it's something that I still deal with. But like, this person supported me financially when I was going through court.
So you're still
supported
able
me
to have
emotionally.
gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for this person that I was living with. And it doesn't outweigh the damage that's been done though. You know, like I've been diagnosed with bipolar type 2, which is I get extreme highs and extreme lows. Severe depression is my other diagnosis, as well as psychosis, which is essentially hallucinations. If I get too stressed out, I'll have visual hallucinations. If I get a little bit stressed out, I'll get auditory hallucinations. So I'll hear like music or voices or things will talk to me, things of that sort. And to have that written off for 23 years as something that was an entity or some other energy or a ghost or something like that was messing with my energy or whatever, I feel like it really set me back as a person, because now that I have this diagnosis, there's power in knowing I'm not currently medicated because the meds made me feel so grayed out that I could not function.
And you're still learning to find your balance with everything too. Right,
exactly. But there's just a lot there. But support was good. To get back to your question, support was good early on, but it was slow enough for me to not realize how bad it got until it got to a breaking point.
It makes sense that you would describe it as a cult-like environment, because that's how cults work, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they come out hard and swinging because you would see the crazy too soon. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's a very gradual grooming process.
I feel like that's the thing that people miss about cults is like I watch like documentaries or like series on like, you know, streaming services, and I'll be like, I get it. If you're raised in it, I get it. If it's something that you fall into through a person, through a friend of a friend of a friend, and then like you're like, and then before you know it, you're in so deep that it makes so much sense, and then somebody on the outside reaches out to you and says, hey, that's kind of weird. And then it sinks in.
Yeah,
like
it gets the wheels in your head turning.
Right, exactly. Like it's not.
I think the thing, and I don't know if you saw my face that made my nostrils flare a little bit, is talking about the refusal to acknowledge that what was going on with you was actually a mental health matter, and you essentially suffering way longer than was necessary because the people in your life that are supposed to have your back and your best interest at heart are sitting in too much delusion to be able to see this is what's going on, and to be able, or you know, any person that's important in your life, to be able to look at a child that's important in their life and say, okay, you know, maybe something's going on, to be able to look at that. So for that's when my nostrils are flaring a little bit, because I'm grieved for you and I'm angry for you, because it's not like you had the insight to know, hey, I think something might be going on with my mental health, and having the adult perspective and adult tools to be able to look at it and say, hey, I need help, when you have the people in your life that are supposed to be able to help you with that insight when you're younger, and they're not doing that, but rather morphing it and twisting it into something that it should have never become.
And that was the thing. I was living with an adult it was somebody who I looked up to and looked to for guidance and care, and it was provided in the context of like what the belief system was, but it wasn't provided in a realistic sense.
Right.
You know, and I remember being a teenager and just like my mental illness can be so severe to where like I remember it being a teenager and hiding in my closet.
Wow.
Because I was so afraid of the outside world and like my feelings and like hearing things, and I didn't know how to process that. You know, and I remember reaching out to friends about it, and they were like, what the fuck?
Right.
So I tell people to this day that I'm crazy, but you know what? It's high functioning crazy.
I love you so much. So I know you've heard me say these words because, the very first time we ever sat down together and you disclosed to me that you had bipolar, you saw my face. I don't have the typical reaction to that kind of thing because I have my own perspective on it. I've had friends who have had a bipolar diagnosis for years, even thinking into high school years. And they're some of my favorite people in the entire world, because while they may deal with the challenges that they deal with as a result of the fact that their brain is just wired differently than other people's, neurodivergent, it's great, all right? Besides that, my friends and other people that I'm familiar with in my life who have bipolar are some of the most creative innovators, the most compassionate, empathetic people that I've ever met in my life. And I have so much deep respect for people like you that have, I've told you this, that have bipolar, because I look at you and I see, wow, look at this creativity that is being cranked out amidst the fact that they are dealing with the hurdles that they're dealing with. So I understand why you would frame it that way, you know, joking and telling people that you're crazy and looking at the weakness aspects of it. But we've also talked, there are some major superpowers to it. And I look at you, I mean, the very first time you told me that you had bipolar, my face lit up, which I know is a very weird reaction, but I instantly felt even deeper affection for you because, like I said, the people in my life that I've known prior to you that have a bipolar diagnosis, yes, they experience their challenges, they experience their highs and their lows, but also, like I said, they have all these amazing qualities, and it really breaks my heart when I can see and I know that that has been framed as a total weakness or something that is inherently wrong with them.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm repeating a lot of things that I've already said to you, but I just, one, I wanted to reiterate it, but two, for any of our listeners or viewers that are out there who might be dealing with that or something else in the realm of mental health that they're feeling is something that is a total weakness. Yeah. I don't believe that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's very important to share with people. And I think especially in today's climate, I feel like there's more mental health issues than ever before.
Yes.
And I think we're at a very important time where we are acknowledging it finally.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been so important to me I don't hide that fact about me.
I love that you don't hide that fact.
Like, I get sad. I get very sad. I get so sad that I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I get manic. I get so manic that I get everything done.
You get
plus
shit
some.
done.
Like, it's insane. But, you know, the sadness, it comes and it hurts and it's the worst, and your mind plays these tricks on you. And especially with psychosis, anybody will tell you, like, those voices, they tell you terrible things, but they also tell you happy things sometimes. And when I was on medication, it got very lonely. And people with psychosis or schizophrenia will attest to the same thing, where they say
it gets really quiet.
It's quiet, which people think, oh, that's good. It's quiet. It's finally quiet, but it's too quiet. It's lonely.
I can understand
because you've had that your whole life.
I can understand. I remember you telling me too, when you were talking about the psychosis aspect of it, that you've kind of been able to look at it as it's almost like a signal to you that your stress levels are too high, because you, like you said, for you, the psychosis aspect comes in when your stress levels are at peak. Yeah. And so that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
So let's talk about someone that you're pretty fond of. Okay.
All right.
So I'm referring to your partner, Thistle.
They're all right.
They're all right. They're pretty okay. You'll keep them around. So you said that you met them prior to going through everything that you were going through, the final crux of what happened with you getting out of the situation that you were in, and that they have supported you every step of the way. So what has that meant to you to have Thistle support through everything that you've gone through in regard to that?
It's been incredible, honestly. Like, I met Thistle on Tinder.
Everybody meets people online these days. There's no shame.
Yeah. And our first date, I went over to their apartment. They're also non-binary.
Yeah.
I went over to their apartment, and I was doing drag at the time.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And they were like, I have all these clothes that are like super feminine that I don't want. And I was like, well, I'll try them on. Yeah. So literally our very first date, this was the second date. The first time they met me was at my drag show.
Nice.
It was during a competition.
Okay.
But the second time I went over to their apartment, and I just tried out on a bunch of their clothes.
That's great. That's great.
And we drank wine, and it was great. And we just fell for each other.
That's awesome.
You know, and things might not always be perfect between me and them.
Yeah.
But the thing that always comforts me, we were talking about this last night, the thing that always comforts me is that we will always get through everything.
Yeah.
We always have, and we always will. Like, when things are rough, we get through it. Like, I don't know how. Like, we talk through it, we work through it, and they're there for me, I'm there for them. And there's times where, like I said, things are rocky, but we just get through it. because that's what you do.
It makes a difference when both parties are equally committed to making the relationship work. That makes a huge difference.
I absolutely adore Thistle. You know, they're the mother of my son,
Ezra,
and of Ezra, and Kiara has adopted them as her mother.
That's
and
awesome.
you know, and it's, I will never be able to repay what Thistle has given me in life. Stability, recognition that the situation that I was in was less than savory in so many ways.
Yeah, you got that validation.
And
yeah.
I mean, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I'll support you in buying whatever you need for your business. And I'm like, sometimes I spend a little too much money on things that I don't need. But the support is there, and that's something that I will never be able to repay, and I recognize that.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you found your person.
Yeah.
I mean, we all need to find our person, and I'm always so happy when I hear that friends have found that person, that they are able to give their full love, and then that person returns that full love.
And I think that's the thing that people miss is, like, I feel like people think that it's just always perfect. You know, but it's hard.
No,
it's work.
Right, exactly.
And you just have to find that person that's willing to put in the same amount of work as you are to get through the hard times. You know, and things are hard right now. Like, we don't have anybody to watch the kids, and, you know, we're both working. Like, Thistle works during the day and I work at night, and we hardly see each other, but, you know, we make it work.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do.
That is
You're
what
a
you
team.
do. Yeah. It's true. It also helps when you think that each other's kind of cute. Like, that helps too. Just a little bit.
Thistle's got it going on.
That's great. We'll just use that as a soundbite. That'll be the preview. That's it.
Perfect.
Thistle's got it going on.
I'm sure they will love that.
So let's talk about a huge part of who you are, a part of yourself that you're very proud of, that you are very committed to sharing, and that it's one of the things I love about you so much. You're an awesome non-binary human and a huge advocate for gender non-conforming individuals. I have learned so much by being friends with you. You have just opened my eyes to things that I maybe didn't understand, and just put some words to things I maybe didn't understand. And I appreciate you so much, because I feel like you're such a good, non-aggressive advocate, and you just want people to understand, and I think that's amazing.
I'm just vibing.
Yeah, just vibing. I love your passion for specifically helping the next generation to find hope and happiness in their own journey. So I want to know what your journey's been like with coming to terms with the fact that you identify as non-binary.
It's been a very long
Strap in, let's do it.
So I would like to clarify that I currently identify as non-binary, but I do believe that I might be trans.
Right, yeah.
Which part of me is like, cool, and the other part of me is like, I feel like I'm masquerading in both parties.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Why?
Like, because I've a lot of trans people start off as non-binary.
Okay.
They start off as cis, and then they are like, oh, let's go non-binary, and then they go towards trans.
So almost like a way station to where they were ultimately coming into their own.
Yeah, and even if I did transition, I still feel like I would use they, them pronouns. Maybe she, they.
Okay.
But point being, my journey was, there's a very early picture of me wearing a dress as like maybe like 7 or 8.
Yeah, yeah.
And my mom sent that to me after I started doing drag to experiment with my sexuality and my gender identity. And she was like, this is, my drag name was Alexis Starr. This is Alexis Starr's first appearance. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And I was like, I was wearing this dress, and I had my arm up, and I was like, I was serving looks. But so I bought, it was when I was still with Kiara's mother, I tried on some of her clothes, like a dress.
Yeah.
And I was like, this feels right.
Okay.
And she was very supportive of that, Kiara's mother was,
awesome.
which was amazing. And I got away from it after we had Kiara, because, you know, kids take a lot of time. And as she got older, I think when she was like 2 or 3, maybe, I think it was when she was 3, I reached out to somebody who I went to high school with, who I knew did drag, and he helped me like do makeup and make hip pads and learn all the ins and outs of drag, and I will forever be grateful to him
That's
for
awesome.
that. we might not have ended on the greatest terms because we ended up dating and I wasn't the best, I will admit, but he helped me immensely, and that was something that I really needed. And my friends were amazing and supportive, and they still are to this day. Like, even knowing that like I am considering transitioning, and like all cis-het men are just like, whatever you got to do, bro.
That's awesome. That's
it's
really awesome.
Cool. You know, it's the same friend group that I was making videos with back in high school.
I love that.
So I started doing drag, and it wasn't for me because for me it was real. You know, like
I remember you talking about that, and that actually, I'm glad that you said that, and I would love for you to give some more clarity to that right now. It makes so much sense to me.
I took everything so personally, so anybody who's ever done drag will know that it's super catty. Those bitches are mean, and they will tear you down, and there's families, and the houses are mean to other houses because this happened, and blah, 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 and you know, family members are kicked out, and they start their own families, and whatever.
Wow.
It's very political. And I remember just like other queens being mean to me and me crying and being like, I didn't understand because like I thought we were all there for the same reason.
Sure.
You know, and as the years passed, I learned that for a lot of them it was a form of self-expression, yes, but for me it was me expressing who I truly was. Like Alexis Starr as the woman was me. Like who I always felt I was. I felt most comfortable.
Sure, and that's where I'm imagining that's where the separation is. That for them, it's like they're playing a character, and for you were taking that opportunity to really live into your own. So I can see where the separation is.
It felt real, you know. Like I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, wow, that's incredible. Like that's most of the time when I look in the mirror, I look at myself and I'm just like, eh. You know what I mean?
A lot of people are like that.
Like I feel like I'm like, yeah, you like are not bad for like a man, but you're not a man.
I understand that, but I also don't, right? Because you know that's your experience. That actually triggered in my head to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you feel, as confident as you are in who you are right now, do you still feel pressure to conform to the gender that you were born with in certain situations?
Always.
What kind of situations do you feel that kind of pressure?
Anytime I meet family.
Okay. Okay.
Anytime I meet with family, or like Thistle's family. Not so much Thistle's family because they know and accept that I'm non-binary, and they try to respect my pronouns as best as they can. But you know, anytime I'm around like bros, like people broing out, like gym bros, or like I'm in the industry and like I'm like doing a shoot or something, and there's like guys there. Like today, I was doing a shoot with a bunch of country boys, and I was like, oh, better put on my guy face. But you
better
know,
drop that octave a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's situations like that, but it's a journey. You know, any non-binary or you know even gay individuals who aren't you know gender non-conforming anyway will tell you it's just. I mean, you should know it's a journey.
It's a journey. Figuring yourself out and
just being your authentic self.
Absolutely.
And you find that you're putting on a face. You think that you're putting on a face for other people, but really you're putting on a face to protect yourself. And
that's so true.
That's something that you need to get over, and that's something that I'm still working on getting over because I on my website I say that I'm non-binary, and I think it's very important to say that, but I haven't put out that I'm trans because that's dangerous.
Does it feel like there's a lot more weight to that word for you?
It really does. Like, there's so many stories of just cis-het men who like find out that somebody's a trans woman and they kill them.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a very real thing that happens in today's world, and we write that off because it's not. A majority of society doesn't understand what it means to be trans or non-gender conforming.
That's true. But I just had this conversation with my fiance not that long ago. We were talking about the fact that so many people confuse trans with sexuality.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? It automatically gets confused with that, and it has nothing to do with that. It's 100% gender identity, but that gets confused so much.
And that's the thing, here's the thing. I mainly like femme-presenting individuals. I like men.
Yeah.
Like boys, I'll think they're cute. And sometimes I'll be like, that's a cute boy. But, like a majority of the time, like Thistle will be like, you're a lesbian. Like knowing
You can
that.
be an honorary lesbian. I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like Thistle will say that to me and I'll be like, yeah, like that feels right to me. And I know like that might throw a bunch of people off because I have a beard. But what can you do about that?
But you know what? That
Like-
goes back to everybody needing to file people into boxes because it makes more sense in a lot of people's brains. Just because you have a beard, just because you are able to pass as a cisgendered male, that doesn't mean that that's what that is.
And for the trans girls who have time and energy to put on makeup and shave their beards and like wear different clothes, I commend you so much because I am so tired and I wish I had the energy to do that. But it's so much work. Like I got 2 kids, like
It sounds like a lot of work.
it is like, and then your face breaks out because you're shaving.
Oh, man.
But then there's still like the stubble underneath, so you have to put like color corrector. Like trans girls
A lot of
who
respect.
do that, so much respect. And do like
Yeah.
the vocal training to get their octaves higher. Like girl, whew. That's where I hope to be someday.
Well, I love that you're so open about your journey and about the fact that you're still figuring things out, because I feel like when people like you are vocal about that, it helps other people to feel permission to also be okay with the fact that they don't have it all figured out. Because to be honest, who among us have ourselves fully figured out?
Yeah.
I certainly do not.
And that's the thing you said at the beginning of when you were introducing me, is it's very important to me to like not hide who I am.
Yeah.
Because had I had somebody maybe like me who I could see, having their own business
Yeah.
and being their authentic self, if I could have seen that as a teenager, I might have come out sooner or may have accepted that part of myself sooner and been able to start this journey sooner. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is like, I know a lot of, at least for me, like I wish I had started this journey prepubescent.
Yeah.
Just if I had done hormone blockers, there's a lot of things in my body that would not be how they
Sure.
are, and I
Sure.
would have liked how I looked a lot better. So there's just a lot, and I know in today's climate that's a very sensitive topic to talk about is hormone blockers and HRT
Sure.
for adolescent children. But
Right. But you're still allowed to feel how you feel about it,
Mm-hmm.
and the politics of it all and the arguments that are out there, to me in this situation, they don't really have anything to do with it, because you're just talking about your own personal desires and reflecting back and thinking, okay, if what would it have been like if this would have
Yeah.
been this way. So I get
I
that.
remember looking at the guy who had helped me with doing my drag in high
Yeah.
school and being like, wow, because he was out. He was out there. He was loud and proud about who he was, and like, I was not.
You know what? It's a journey for everybody else, and this everybody's comfort level with how when they are ready to be very vocal about it is different. Some people hit that earlier. My fiance came out when she was 13. I was much later. I was in my early 20s when I came out. I think everybody's journey is different with that.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that you're so willing to share your journey and help other people learn and to just be authentically you, even if that means saying, I'm not quite sure where I'm at with things. I think that's awesome.
I'm definitely happy to put myself on the train tracks for the next generation. Like that's.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the most important thing. I look at my kids and I see the future.
Definitely.
And I see a future where people can be who they are unapologetically, and that's how it should be.
Absolutely.
Like even if you don't understand, that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand.
Okay to not
Just
understand
respect it.
Yes. I wish everybody could grab onto that ideology, and I think we're moving in a good direction with it.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
and again, that's why I'm so vocal about it. That's why I put it on my business website. That's why I have my pronouns on
Yeah.
my Instagram and my Facebook, because I want people to know, like, this is who I am.
That's who you are. I love that. Well, I feel like a really good place for us to end this is to talk about the podcast.
Definitely.
And when we first started this, we released a bio video and kind of talked about everything in relationship to the podcast, but we haven't sat down in this kind of a setting and kind of really hashed things out. And we obviously are in constant communication about what's going on with the podcast.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about it on this level. So what has it been like for you? You really were in on the ground floor. We sat down, we had a conversation over coffee, we cried, we laughed. It was
great.
Literally cried and laughed. It was great.
I'm surprised we haven't cried during this interview.
I'm actually kind of we're doing a great job. So what has it been like to be such a huge part of this, and thinking back to when we first had a conversation about this, and then looking at what we've got going on now, what's it been like for you, and is this what you thought it was going to be like?
Okay, so to be completely transparent, when you first reached out to me, I was like, this is something to do. I don't know if it'll blow up, I don't know if it won't, but this is something to do and it's moving forward, and I love that. And we'll make it work. And we're shooting on this very nice camera here and this very not good camera here.
It works though, right?
But I had this stuff and we made it work, and it looks good. And last week when we recorded Jason's interview, he talked about how he could see a significant increase in quality.
And that I don't know how you felt about hearing that.
I felt great about that. I was like, hell yeah.
That felt amazing, because remember after we shot Big C's episode, our very first episode, we were talking about after we finished the episode going back and watching his episode, and then going back and watching one of our most recently. I feel like in that validation, in that compliment that Jason gave us, particularly you, because once again, I wasn't kidding in my intro when I said this thing is so visually appealing because of you. It is 100% because of you.
Just wait until next season.
Oh, it's gonna be lit.
It's gonna be so good.
But seriously, to get that affirmation of somebody, and Jason is one of our biggest fans, and I love that so much.
Yeah.
To see from the beginning and to recognize the progress, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. But to get back to your question, like I said, it started off as something I was like, to be completely honest with you, I was like, I got time. Because you were like, there's no pay or anything, and I was like, okay, that's
I tried
whatever.
to be so unbelievably honest with you.
Yeah.
I know I framed it in pretty language. I was like, so this is a passion project.
Yeah, which
means no money at all.
That's how this business started. That's how my business started.
Right?
That's how Moonlight Creative started. Was just me doing stuff for free. I booked your wedding by doing the Grinders identity video for free.
Yeah.
So that's how you grow. You start with making nothing, but especially with the recent episodes and getting the feedback that we've gotten and seeing like when you post reels and my phone just blows. I have to set it down because we're getting so many likes. I'm like, we're impacting people. We're changing how people see Toledo, and that's to me is incredible, because Toledo is an incredible city.
It is an incredible city.
I used to hate Toledo.
Did you really?
I was like, there's nothing to do here, blah. But as I've gotten older and actually gone into downtown and explored the areas, and even when we were at
the music store?
No, what was the coffee shop that we first met at?
Oh, yeah, it's not even open anymore. Almost Human.
Almost Human.
Oh, I love
had
that
never
coffee
been
shop.
there before. I'd never heard of it
I'm so glad
before.
that you got to go there before it closed.
It was incredible.
It was
Tyler,
really cool.
You would have loved this place. It had Mad Hatter's energy, for sure.
It was very cool.
It was so good. But anyways, just exploring and finding these places and being involved in groups like Toledo Creatives, where all of these things are posted, like photographers, videographers, artists, painters, musicians. And, interviewing Tom Clausen and learning about Playing Tonight. Is that what the group's called?
Playing Tonight in Toledo.
Playing Tonight in Toledo. There's so much going on in this city, and it's opened my eyes to that. And hopefully through this podcast, we're opening other people's eyes to the fact that this city is not just a small city. It's not just a baby Detroit. It's its own entity with its own personality and its own
pulsing energy,
community, and we support each other. Toledo comes when we need Toledo to come out. They come out.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
You don't get that with other cities. It's small enough to have a community, but big enough to have a lot going on.
That's so true.
So this podcast has really changed how I viewed our city, and I hope that is
so happy. Oh my God, that makes me so happy, because you know more than anyone else, and I almost can't talk about it in depth without getting really emotional, so I'm not gonna do it right now. We'll reserve that for next week. But
for tomorrow.
Yeah, for tomorrow. But you know why I started this. You know why it's so important to me. You know how much I love our city and love the people and how committed I am. And I'm actually excited to give more context to it in my interview, why it's so important to me to help all of these people feel more understood.
Yeah.
But just you saying that it opened your eyes up more to what our city is, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, you've had a unique perspective this entire season because you've been the quiet, awesome person behind the camera making this all work. So you really have had a front row seat to seeing all of this. So overall, not even thinking about Toledo, what have you learned about people just from observing this? I mean, I kind of did math in my head a little bit, and we talked about it once. I mean, even thinking now, we probably have had about 20 hours of interviews, maybe more than that. So what have you learned?
So much.
Yeah.
So much. Oh my God. Like, there's so many creatives in this city. Like, I literally feel like we are some sort of like, I don't know what the word is. I can't think of the word right now, but like,
We're like a hub.
An inconsistency in the algorithm. Because
We
there's
are an
so
inconsistency in the
many
algorithm.
like intricate, unique, creative people here.
Yeah.
Like every person we've sat down with, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, you live here? Like, that's insane. Like, Ryan Roth, I saw the Toledo Zoo post a video of like his sculptures recently. I was like, I know him.
Yes.
Which is so funny. Like, I know I say this multiple times. I've said this multiple times over our season, but like, I feel like I know these people at the end of the interview because I sit there and I listen to their whole story, but they have no idea who I am.
So you want to be on like a really familiar basis.
At the end of the interview, I want to give them
wonderful.
a hug. Like Angel Tipping, for example, like her telling her story. Like, I was just like, at the end, I was just bringing it in, but I was like, but you don't know me. But there's so many. Every single person has brought so much to the table. Like, I related to Ella Cole, I related to Big C, I related to Dietrich Hickey. Like, there's so many people that I've related to and just been like, wow, like, we're not just a simple community, we're like a web of interconnected people that like, Toledo is incredible for that reason.
I agree with you.
As like doing this podcast has brought that to my eyes, is just seeing how we're all interconnected in that way. Like, Toledo is seriously like a glitch in the Matrix. like, there's a lot going on here.
It's a beautiful glitch.
Yeah, seriously. So it's just, I don't know. Doing this podcast has been one of the best things that I've ever done in my life.
I'm so glad. I love you so much.
I love you.
Thank you. You become one of my dearest friends. I love working with you. I love that we fuel each other's creativity so much, and I love that I found a person to do this with that is as excited about doing it as I am. And
just you wait for the off season because we have some big
you don't even
plans.
know.
We're gonna get you crying.
Well, I once again, I just love you. I love who you are as a person. I love that you're doing this with me. I'm so excited for the growth that we've already experienced, for what's coming that our guests don't even know about yet. We have so much exciting stuff coming up, and I'm so excited that we get to do it together. And I love you so much for being willing to get out from behind the camera and sit down and do this.
I was nervous.
I know. I was nervous too, just because I wanted to do this justice for you. Because
I'd love to come back next season.
Oh, I feel like that sounds like a great idea. Let's sign you up already.
All right.
So I'm gonna do the same thing for you that I've done for every single one of our guests that we've had on so far. You know the drill.
I do know the drill.
Go ahead and look right at the camera. Tell people where they can find you on social media and anything that you want to promote whatsoever. The floor is yours, especially so because this is also your podcast. Right. So.
All right. So I have a few accounts that you can follow on. I'm just gonna throw out Instagram. So my personal account is @TiernenBruce. I don't post much there, to be quite honest. But when I do, it's either my kids or myself or things that I'm up to in my personal life. My corporate video and photography, like fashion photography stuff, is @Moonlight Creatives with an S. Without an S is another production company, I believe based out of the East Coast somewhere. They're really good at what they do. You can follow them too, Moonlight Creative. If you want to follow my wedding photography and videography, that is @Garden of Love Films. on Instagram, and you should also follow at Heart of Glass the Pod on all social media platforms because we are trying to shape the world's view of Toledo in a better, more positive way.
Absolutely, and I feel like we're rocking out to some serious mental health improvement and focus on that, which
seriously
we're both very passionate about.
Definitely, and that's something that I love about this podcast.
I love that. So once again, I feel like Tiernen kind of said part of what I would normally say. Seriously, from the bottom of both of our hearts, I love that you're sitting here for this. Thank you for tuning in, whether it's listening or watching. For those of you that are first-time watchers and listeners, thank you so much. To those of you that have been watching and listening from the beginning of our season, we are so deeply appreciative to you. Like Tiernen said, you can find us on social media, our Facebook and Instagram. You can find us at Heart of Glass the Pod. If you would like to watch us anywhere other than Facebook, you can find us on YouTube. And if you're going to do that, please hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to listen, you can hear us on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Tiernen's right, we have a lot of stuff coming up next season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we haven't really fully publicized this, but this is our second to the last episode of our very first season. So our next episode will be the very last episode, and I feel like it's weird for me to tell people what's going on next week. So I'm gonna let you. I know this is very on the spot, but I'm gonna let you.
Yeah. So next week, aka we're recording tomorrow. I will be interviewing Ashley about her story and everything that she has done in her life leading up to now. So we will get to know the host of Heart of Glass the Pod.
Indeed, we are flipping the script. We did have some. We were actually intending on ending the season this way anyway, but we did have some requests for this specifically. So we are, for those of you that have been wanting me to be in that seat and feel as nervous as our guests have felt, I will be doing that for next week's episode. Thank you so much again for tuning in with us to once again learn about one of the awesome humans who makes up the heartbeat of the Glass City. We love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week for our final episode of season 1. Thanks, we'll see you then.